Alrighty, let's get started. So, for those who I have not met, my name is Bree. I'm really happy to have you here, particularly to those of you on the replay who are not here in the live time that I've not met. And it's really beautiful to have some of you here with me in the live vibrancy of this transmission or this invitation. So, let's start. Now we've had a little bit of time just to arrive with the music. I'll just invite you just to take a few breaths into your body. It's really important to just be here. So you might close your eyes down. You might take breath in the nose, exhaling out the mouth, and just start to feel your belly and your womb space. Take a few breaths like this, just feeling your body. Noticing how it's feeling in this moment, what it's feeling in this moment. You might like to check in with your heart. How's your heart feeling? Just taking a moment to really notice your body, what sensations are there. If you've not worked with me before, we're going to do some talking today, but a lot of what I'm teaching is to have relationship with life through the body. Embodiment is, I perceive it, at least my lineage of teachers, we talk about embodiment being the feminine path. And so an example of that is yoga. You could say yoga is an embodied practice, meaning we're using the body to do things. But the thing with yoga is it's very structured. It's very, at least traditionally how most people teach it. You might have had an experience otherwise. But most forms of yoga is do this sequence, follow, rinse, repeat, stretch your body in this way, stretch your body in this way, stretch your body in this way. And all of that's great. I love yoga. And women's embodiment is something completely different. So you could say that's the part of the masculine path, which creates certain strengths in our system, in our body. But the feminine path of embodiment is moving away from that structure of linearness. So one of my teachers, Michaela Boehm, she calls it non-linear movement. So it's quite simple to understand what non-linear is in a sense, because it's anything that is not in that same structural way and not repetitive. And so, in my programs, I'll talk about later, we do practices that are specifically designed to help with that, which help the nervous system and all sorts of things. But I just want to frame up that embodiment is the feminine path, meaning when we come in relationship with other people, particularly we're going to be talking about men today, the way that we need to calibrate that, and the way I'm going to invite you to calibrate that, is through your body. Because it's really easy to do it through the head and go, well, this is what I think, and this is what I know, and this is what someone told me, and to do this analysis thing. But as feminine beings, if you're a woman who relates to being more in the feminine spectrum, then your body is your vessel. And so learning how to use it as your thermometer, your pulse check, is a really simple concept, not easy, but it's a simple concept to start with, and hence why embodiment is something I'm going to just gently invite you into today. And some of you have already done some work with me and have done more robust aspects of embodiment, but this is just to give you a taste and to look at how it can translate to our relationship with men. So let's just take a breath and feel ourselves. This is the beginning of embodiment, is feeling ourselves in the moment. How am I? And just letting ourselves calibrate the body's response. So as I'm talking, I really invite you to listen to your body. I might say something and you feel yourself jar, Or I might say something, you feel your heart close, or you feel a stab, or so really try and pay attention to those things on this call if it's new to you, because this is what I would call embodied relating is about for women. It's using our body as our feedback loop for, oh, what's good for me? What's working for me? Where am I holding myself back? So I'm going to just give a short introduction to me, which I actually don't do almost ever in all of my workshops and programs. I was thinking about this yesterday. I was like, I never actually tell my story. So, share a little bit of that, and then we're going to get into the things that we're going to get into. And the reason I'm going to share my story is many of you have not worked with me before, but also it's really relevant to the content of this course. So, oh gosh, where to start? So I've always loved men. I love women for different reasons, but I've always been in an intimate romantic relationship with men. And maybe that's the case for most of you. But I realized somewhere in the last 10 years that my relationship to men was actually not that healthy. And one of the ways that I started to realize that was through embodied practice, but also through a few big events that happened in my life. So a little bit of context around that. I was in relationship with the father of my now teenage son for almost 20 years. So we were in partnership, and when we got together, we were both into personal development. We both agreed that our parents did not very healthy relationships. My parents had divorced when I was 14, or sorry, separated when I was 14. And his parents were still together, but it wasn't good. It was very toxic. And I'll explain more about that term if you're unfamiliar with it. And so we came together with the premise that we wanted to grow together and we wanted to do so much better than our parents. And yet, we only got so far. We hit a lot of challenges in our relationship, and it wasn't until that relationship ended that I realized, sure, we didn't do exactly the same stuff our parents did, but for me, speaking as a woman, a lot of the challenges that I had relating with men, specifically this man, but all men, came from my mother. My mother taught me how to view men, what to expect of them, how to treat them, how to manipulate them, how to cock block them, how to bully them, how not to really love them very well. Not that she didn't love them, not that she doesn't love them, but she didn't have a very good imprint around healthy relationships to men. And my father, I guess, conversely, in different ways. And so I just want to give you this frame because we got to keep myself from going into like a big 3-hour conversation around this, but this usually is where we learn from our female role models. We learn consciously or unconsciously. And so for me, my mum has never really had a very good relationship from where I sit now, therapeutically, with men. And so all I did was replicate that. Even though I was more aware, even though I did therapy, even though I trained as a hypnotherapist, I did lots and lots of stuff, okay? I spent how many years? More than 20 years. It's almost 25 years now, I think, in the personal development world. And I still fucked up my marriage. And I tell you this because I want you to feel that I am flawed human as well, and that I've had the pain of what I'm going to talk about, wherever you are on that spectrum. And so when that marriage ended, I was completely taken aback. He had gone to counseling because he was having his own personal crisis after a business collapse. And that ended up going down this whole rabbit hole where the therapist was like, your marriage. Turns out it wasn't as healthy as we thought it was. And so we ended up parting ways. And it wasn't until that happened that people said to us, but you guys have the picture perfect relationship. And this is the thing that's so interesting in our society. What we see as this superficial perfect relationship was what we had. And it was what I thought I was meant to have. Was what my parents had consciously or unconsciously taught me. And so it wasn't until the rupture of that long-term partnership that I did what I do really well and went, fuck, how do I do this better? And so I went deep into the personal development aspects of adult relationships. I had already spent a lot of time in this world. We'd done Tantra together. You know, I have a whole shelf of Tantra books, but I wasn't living it the way that I do now. So now it's 6 years later. And I literally overhauled my whole life as a result of this. And what I learned was I was bringing lots of unhealthy shit to the relationship. He had his part. I'm not really going to go into that. But I was bringing so much unhealthy dynamics to the relationship that it was almost impossible for us to have a really healthy relationship together as man and woman because we just didn't know how. And so that's the stuff that I want to, give you some little tasters of today in this call, and hopefully invite you to do some more work in this area if that feels appropriate for you. I guess I should finish the story, now, where I am now. Gosh, I get so much in my feminine storytelling flow, forgive me. Now I actually uncoupled from a beautiful man for Christmas, so 4 months ago. And that was without a doubt the healthiest relationship I have ever had. And for me, that was a testament of the work that I'm going to talk to you about and the work that I did on myself for all the 5 years leading up to that 18-month partnership. I ended that not because it was not a good relationship, because I actually want something even more fucking mind-blowing. And I can speak from the dynamic that we had and how much I'm going to talk to you about these concepts. We had that. He could bring me that because I'd done the work on myself and he'd done the work on himself. And so I think that's probably enough to give you a little bit of a taster of the fact that, I've had this challenge and this crisis, and I grew through it and I figured a lot of stuff out and went, why is nobody teaching us this stuff? And here I am now teaching what was the biggest pain for me. And hopefully not for you, but if it is, I want to tell you that there's hope, that you do not have to feel like your relationship with men is not ever going to get better. And the thing is, I didn't know it was unhealthy when we were married. I really was oblivious to that. And so that could be your experience too. It could be you just want something a little bit better, and that's fine. But if you really feel like you don't trust men, or there's part of you that holds back, then some of these conversations are going to be useful for you. So let's take another breath and just relate to whatever about my story is appropriate for you. As I get my screen share happening. There we go. Alrighty. Can I just get a thumbs up that you can see my screen? Thank you. Wonderful. So I want you to imagine, and if you're in a partnership already, this will be easy, but either way, I want you to imagine that you are in the relationship with what you would deem the perfect man. He's showing up how you want. He treats you the way you like to be treated. You feel like you have struck gold. This is the relationship of your dreams. And then I want you to feel in your body, what kind of woman would you be in that kind of relationship? So just notice maybe your posture changes. Maybe your breath changes. Maybe you feel yourself soften. Maybe you get a little bit aroused. Maybe you feel playful. Maybe you get excited. So just notice how your body responds to this. And you can consider the traits that he would be bringing and how you would match that reciprocally. And then I want you to ask yourself, what's stopping you from having that relationship now? And if you're single, the answer is not, I'm single. But in you, what is stopping you from having that relationship now? And I would invite you just to share in the chat what comes up. Could be fear of being hurt. It could be you don't feel like he's giving you something. Could be I haven't found the right person. But I want you to relate this to you. What in you is stopping you from having this kind of relationship with men now? Okay. So softening and being really receptive to him. Feeling like he's going to drop you or abandon you. Yes, yes. Abandonment. Yes. Yes. Whew. Yeah, like I'm feeling all that in my body as I speak it, and hopefully you can feel it as well. Yeah, abandonment is such a deep wound for all of us. So just again, really notice your body as we talk about this. I'm taking you straight in there because the body is where we hold our truths. So I'm trained as a clinical hypnotherapist. I worked as a hypnotherapist professionally for 12, 13 years. I know how to work with the mind, but there is something that happens when we work deeply with the body as I do now. And I really want you to try and feel that in this call. Feeling like he's not hearing me, he's not seeing me, and a fear of abandonment. So everyone has shared abandonment. It's actually a very deep wound for us as women. Men have slightly different wounds. Thank you for sharing. All right. So this may or may not be a surprise, but I really believe that in order for us to heal our relationships with men, whether we want to be sexually intimate with them or not, most likely you do, but it doesn't have to be the case. We have to start with us. And so if you have ever heard anyone talk about the idea of attachment theory, we need to become more secure in ourselves. And the way that I like to teach and support and help women to do that is through working through what's happening in our body that is reverting to those old patterns. Because, as all of you have alluded to, so many of us as women hold deep wounds around men. It's like, even when I feel that now, I could cry. It's so deep. And, you know, we can talk about the history of that, which is not going to happen today, but there is a lot of history of women being mistreated by men, being abused by men, being abandoned by men, being treated like objects. And that's not the world we live in if you're in a first world country. And yet we still carry these wounds, right? And so feel the vulnerability of that in your body. And the truth is, ladies, if we're holding this and we are wanting to experience something that is otherworldly, mind-blowing, devotional, for me is an important thing, devotional and sacred, what I would call a third stage relationship. If we want that, we have to do our own work. And I'm sure you've done work to get to this point already, to even be considering digesting some of this content. And yet I imagine there's a part of you that knows there's more to do if you're here. And so I really want to honor that, because we as women hold the key. And the reason I say that is one of my teachers, Gillian Pothier, she has some beautiful teachings around what she calls feminine eros. And there's something that she says, which was one of the first things that I heard from her that really kind of shocked me and made me curious. And she says, the feminine doesn't lead, but our frequency goes first. And so that has many applications, but in relation to what I'm talking about now, the reason I mention this is because if our frequency goes first, if we're still holding that wound and protecting ourselves because we don't want to get abandoned, who does? And we don't want to get hurt, and we're in our wounded child at some capacity, he can only meet us at that. If we can find a way to work through these parts of us and transcend that, then he can meet us at that, whoever he is. And so that's why, a big part of why it has to start with us, because our frequency goes first. Our frequency is the invitation, and men will only ever respond to what we give them. I'm probably going to say lots of things today that you're like, what? And I'm not going to have time to unpack them all, like the statement I just made. But hopefully it gives you some stuff to chew on, because I need to be mindful of time and respect your time as well. So a big way that I have healed this in myself, and let me also say, healing is not a linear journey. I've gone deep into this rabbit hole, and I know there's still more, but I feel like it's more fine grains of sand I'm sifting now. So if you've ever heard the analogy that when we start working on things, it's like we're moving big boulders and big chunks. And then after a while, we're moving smaller boulders. And then eventually we get to the point where we're just making subtle refinements. And that's where I feel like I am with this, or I wouldn't be teaching it, because there's been so much big shit that I've moved through, and there's always going to be improvements, particularly with the next man I'm in relationship with. I know that there's going to be that next level of expansion, but I invite you to be curious about how you can examine the things you're holding, the assumptions you're making about men and about their impact on you, in order to start to heal this at a deeper level. So just take another breath. So I want to talk about some common mistakes that we make as women. And I'm not going to spend a huge amount of time on these things, but again, I just want to really plant some seeds for you. Something that I did, which I didn't share in my story, but I'll share now, is I had this I am so much better than him attitude. Maybe you have that, maybe you don't. It is quite common though. I find a lot of women have this kind of superiority complex where we're like, men are stupid. They're not as sensitive as us. They don't understand things the way we do, and we put them on this lower pedestal. And so just notice if you have a lot of that or a little of that. It's actually a toxic shadow. And so when that relationship ended for me, I went deep into the shadows of myself that had stopped me from really making these changes previously. And these are some of the things that these mistakes invite us to hold on to: our shadows, our perceptions, our judgments. We can often have this perception that they're kind of like us, but they're just bigger and smellier. Big, smelly, hairy women. And when the first time I heard this, I was like, oh my God, I kind of am treating men a bit like that. I thought I understood men. I thought I knew they were different to me and they needed different things, but not at the level I do now. And now I'm wise enough to go, I know this much about what men need. And I actually bother to ask them, as opposed to assuming I know when I had my head up my ass and I was in my superiority complex that, you know, we're so much better than men. Yuck. So something else that a lot of women do is we blame them when they make decisions that are different to us, or we get grumpy with them. So if you think about your current or last relationship, or it could be even your father or a male friend where you've got irritated by a decision they made, it's like, why did he do that? And we berate them and we tell them off, or we chastise them, or we lecture them. Maybe he made that decision for a really good reason, because men do things differently to us. The other thing I see a lot of women do, because I work a lot in the polarity space, if you're not familiar, you know, teaching women how to soften into their feminine, in a sense, at least that's a simple way to explain it, and men more into their masculine, if that's what they want, is when we as women start to castrate men, when we blame them, tell, like, you know, like, I imagine you know what castration is. It's like when we literally chop them off at the balls. It can be a look. It can be a, really? It can be a, why did you do that kind of comment? Or it could be something more pointed. So it's all these really often underhanded, indirect threats or comments or tones or facial expressions that we as women have usually mastered. My mother certainly taught me well. And so these are toxic. If we want to be in a healthy relationship with a man, why the hell would he put up with that shit? But he does, often. And so I want you to just reflect, do you do any of these things? And feel free to pop in the comments. Or there might be something else that comes to mind. This is not an exhaustive list, but you might be getting a sense of ways that we are holding men in unequal ways. They're different to us. They're equal to us. They're just different. And then I invite you, as you reflect on all of this, how does this feel in your body? Assuming that you're better than him or men, acting as if they're inferior to us, or stupid is a common one. Men are so stupid. So many women say that about their husbands. I want to slap them. But I used to want to participate in berating men. I did it actually before I realized how toxic it was. So how does it feel in your body when you berate them, when you blame them? For me, when I think about that, it made me, when I was doing it, it made me feel strong. It made me feel safe. It made me feel superior and like they can't hurt me. And so just notice what's true for you in that. It could be a different sensation in your body. Yeah. Feeling like you have some control. Yeah. It's definitely a defensive shield. Yes, I agree. And sometimes we can lash out and then go, oh, I kind of wish I didn't do that. But do we apologize? No. At least I wasn't back then. I never apologize. Something my ex-husband said to me. He's like, you never fucking apologize. I'm really good at apologies now. I had to deal with that. But I was horrible at it because I'm always right. Right, yes. Yeah. So again, really just notice this in your body. And so I would suggest from my own experience and from all the women that I've worked with in this space, because there are these common threads that we as a society, as a cultural psyche have taken on. I would suggest we do that because we're scared. Because we don't want them to hurt us again like they did, whether it was this life or a past life or our grandmothers, and it's in our bones, it's in our genes, it's in our energetic field 6 generations back. We can still be affected by it. We can still feel it. So it's a wonderful mechanism for protection. Some people, I've heard it termed the feminine shield. It's not feminine though. The feminine doesn't need to shield herself. But I want to talk more about men and women because it's a bit less complicated sometimes. And so a healthy woman has a posture of having herself and not feeling scared that someone else can take that away. You could talk about confidence. You could say it's confidence, but I'd say this is so much more beyond that. And I'm going to give you an archetype around that shortly. But first, I want to talk a little bit about some of the deeper truths that I have discovered about men that blew my mind. And again, this is not an all-inclusive list. This is just some little things, some little tastes. They process information very differently to us. You might already know that, but do you actually use that when you communicate with them? I knew it, but I didn't actually work with it, meaning I didn't respect it. For example, women are very connected to both sides of our brain are very connected. So we can process our emotions really fast. I can talk about this, then I can talk about that, and I can bounce back and forth, and I can get really emotional, and I can, get hit by a wave of emotion, and then it can be gone again. And I'm sure you probably have the experience of noticing most men are not like that. Biologically, their brains are actually wired differently, where they're on this train track and they're kind of stuck on this, and then they get so far down it, you're like, oh my God, he's still talking about that same thing. And if we hang out as women, we're often talking around more in circles, or we're talking about our emotions, and we can pick up multiple conversations and we can just, pick it up, drop it, pick it up again. Men struggle to do that because they're like, well, this is where I am and there's momentum in moving down this track. But when they're talking or thinking like that, their emotions are separate. So then when we ask them a question about how they feel or, how's your body, they're like, and I used to think my ex was like, God, he's so stupid. It takes him so long. And he was not a stupid man. He was very intelligent, but it took him so long to access his feelings. I'd be sitting there for what seemed like 3 hours going, oh my God, how long does it take you to figure out how you feel? But it's like he's got to pick up the train, put it onto a different track, then recalibrate it and tune it, and then he can figure out how he's feeling. And then he's got to find the words. And we do that in 3 seconds. And if we don't understand that, we can be communicating to men like they're women, hairy women. And then we get shitty at them when they can't process things the same as us. And it's not easy. Honestly, it's a practice. And I have a 14-year-old son. It's his birthday tomorrow. He's 14 tomorrow. And I still notice myself doing it. I actually found it easier to do it with my partner than with him because he's not fully developed in these ways. But it's a practice to learn how to respect that men are different biologically. So the next point, they love us. Men fucking love women. Like, even men who've been abused and mistreated by women or by the world, they are so in awe of us in ways that blows my mind. I still can't even fully comprehend. how much they are in reverence to us, our bodies, our capacity for pleasure, how we can access emotions. Sure, this can frustrate them too, but they love us. But they express love differently. So if we're expecting him to express love the way a woman would, the way a girlfriend would, then we again get frustrated. Well, why did he forget our anniversary? Or why did he do this? Or why did he do that? Because he's a man and his biology he's wired different. And his love connection plays out in different ways. For example, men often express their love in very practical ways instead of really romantic, gushy ways. They can do that too, but most men are much more grounded in practical expressions of love. Excuse me. And most of all, they are built like physically as a species. The testosterone, the higher muscle mass, the lower fat, the high metabolism, the way that their bodies process hormones, they are built to protect us. To care for us. Men are built, made biologically to be protectors, warriors, and a man will fight for nothing more than a woman that he loves. He will go to the end of the earth. But we have to be in healthy relationship for him to be really at that point. And when we're constantly chopping his balls off with some of those underhanded comments that I was talking about earlier, it's really hard for him to know how much to let his protector fully come online when part of him doesn't feel fully worshipped. And so part of this, why this is so common, I believe, is because we as women have never been taught. Sure, we can read Men Are From Mars, Women From Venus, which I read a long time ago, and understand some of these differences, but we're not taught how to work with the differences. We're not taught how to let men take care of us. As a society, there's so much stigma around this whole thing that like women are strong and capable, we don't need men. Sure, but we actually do. And if you want to be in a healthy relationship with a man, you've got to get over yourself and you've got to put down that shielding. And so that is what I'm most passionate about, is helping you to do that. And so it starts by really going deep into our shadows. I touched on this briefly, looking at all the things that we're afraid of, the things we're projecting on them, that we're blaming them for, and start to heal our relationship inside of us so that we can then show up as a really healthy version of ourselves. So I love the archetype of the queen. When I started doing this work of healing my relationship to men and to the masculine and to my feminine, this was something that I discovered and I still use it. So really imagine a queen. She's standing by her king and she respects him. She knows she's his equal, but she's different. She's not trying to be a man as his equal. She's trying to be his queen. She does not doubt him. She trusts his decision-making. She trusts that he's a fucking well-worn warrior, but he can also make wise decisions for the community. She trusts that he knows what he's doing and he will look after their best interests. She does not berate him, chastise him, second-guess him. But she has to go on her own journey to become this. And so in some ways, the queen archetype is like the most symbolic of our journey as women, from maiden, into mother, and then working through some of these other archetypes. If you've heard of the men's archetypes, there's like the lover and the warrior, and then like the shaman, and then the king, and it's the same for us. So it's like we start to build and develop all these skills until we become the most full, integrated version of ourselves, who is the queen. And I mean the healthy queen, not the the royal family, which has lots of media associated with it. So for me, the queen is strong. So feel this. She's strong in her spine, strong upright spine. She's got that graceful posture. She's erect, but she's soft in front. She's not armored. She's got that real glow of royalty, of I know my place. I know I'm powerful. And I don't have to speak a word to express my power. I don't have to fight, but I can. I'm strong in my body and I know my capacities. I'm not a victim or a trophy wife. I am a revered equal. Strong spine, open heart, soft, sensual awareness of her own body. Grace, for me, it's strong, powerful grace. So I want to take you through a really short embodiment practice to give you a taste of these energies. So let me just get the music back on. So if you have capacity to, for those of you who are here in lifetime, please join in. If you're in a car or something and that's not appropriate, then maybe just feel it to whatever level you can. And for everyone on the replay, you can roll out a yoga mat and just give yourself a little bit of space to move around. You'll get the most out of this experience. So what I'm going to invite you to do is just to start with some of those patterns that we talked about earlier. So how does it feel in your body to hold this attitude that you're better than man, or that you can't trust man, or whatever your story is? You know what your story is, okay? So I want you to get up and start moving around and just move as an expression of that. It's like you're feeling it. Maybe there's tension in your body, your heart feels closed, you feel angry, whatever it is, just gently move around and feel how it feels in your body. You might make the sounds of this way of being in the world. Just let yourself feel it through your body. Gently moving, breathing, making the sounds, expressing it, feeling it fully. Really let yourself go into it. Just for another minute, feel the worst, most uncomfortable aspects of it in your body. The tension, the anger, the fear, the power, whatever it is, amplify it. breath. Shake that off. Give yourself a little jiggle, take a few breaths. And then as the music starts to change, I want you to step into the Queen. So again, imagining you are in the most amazing relationship that you've ever dreamt of, where you feel safe, loved, cherished. You adore him, he adores you, and whatever that looks like for you, feel it in your body and start to move around and connect to that energy. Make the sounds, breathe. All right, and then just coming into stillness, wherever you are. If you're standing and you can, close your eyes and just feel your body. Take a breath. Notice what's different How's your spine? How's your throat? How's your heart? How's your belly? Just really feel your body. Notice the different qualities when you're in this place. Notice, is there less guarding in your body? Is there a deeper sense of safety? Or anything else that you notice? Just try and pay attention to it. All right. And then when you're ready, just invite you to come back and join me. And just share what you noticed. What did you notice in your body? What was your experience of the contrast? Often there's places in our body that we hold. Essentially, we hold our traumas in our bodies. Sure, they're in our mind, but we access the mind through the body. And so a lot of our fears and these places that we're unsure, we store them in the body. And so embodiment opens it gently or liberates it and invites a new pathway to start to happen, which starts to free up the mind. So you might notice some of the patterns familiar. So going from a place of feeling stuck and having tension or jarring in the muscles. Yeah. Then feeling more sensual, stomach's calmer. Yeah, more caressed. So the queen is very soft, but she's very strong. But it's not what we often perceive as strength. So from really creepy crawlies and squirminess in the belly to sensuality in the belly. Nice. Lovely. And so isn't it amazing how fast it can shift? And so the more we start to work with the body, the more these patterns, they just don't have hold over us anymore. Sure, we need to look at emotional things and psychological things as well, but there is a lot of power in learning how to work through the body to create space. And sometimes I'll find there's something in my body and I don't know what it is, but it will give me a doorway into something that I want to work with more cognitively. And then I will come back to the body to really free it up. So they really need to go hand in hand. I think for any deep lasting change, they need to come together. They need to be in partnership with each other. Oh, my golly. Here we go. So there's so many more things that I would like to share with you. I guess what I do want to say is that we have, summarizing, we have all had these experiences of having unhealthy models or roadmaps for relationship, whether it's from our mothers, our grandmothers, or someone else. And we've taken it on without realizing. And so the only way that I have found to really start to move beyond that is doing a top and tail approach of working with the mind and working with the body, working with the light and working with the dark. And in this analogy, I'm referring to the dark more as the shadows, the parts that we avoid. So for me, when my marriage ended, I went deep into the shadow realms and I had to face all the parts of me that were not willing to look at my attitude around the relationship and take responsibility for the things that I had bought. And that was when I discovered, oh my gosh, I have so much growth to do here. because it's like I had to literally get to know my shadows. It's a Jungian concept that, you know, we all have a shadow back there, right? But we can't really see it. When we turn around, it's still behind us. And so when people talk about shadow work, we're talking about bringing our shadows into the light, liberating them. So we're like, oh, now I can see it. Once we can see it, we can make friends with it, or we can at least come into some sort of awareness of it, because we can't change it if we don't even know it's there. And so some of these concepts might be new to you, they might not be, but I put this program together called Devoted, which is really designed to help you to rise into this, what I call devotional queen. It's about having our own connection to our sovereign selves. A queen for me, she's sovereign. You know, she knows who she is. She's got her own back. She doesn't need anyone, but she also is willing to receive. She's willing to accept. She's, you know, she's in luxury. She's in lavishness. But she can pick up a sword if she needs to. But she doesn't walk around with a sword defensive. You know, there's this difference between I know how to fight and I can leave that over there and I can be soft and lush and sensual and loving and know I have a strong spine holding me. And so this is a big part of what needs to start to happen for us to really come into healthy relationship with men, is to get rid of all those shadows that are essentially creating armor or barriers to the deepest connection that we want and that they want to. Because our frequency goes first, we need to essentially start to liberate this stuff so that he can then meet us in that. And sometimes, you know, a man will have already done his work, but it's really hard for him to recognize a woman who can receive him if we're doing all those things I talked about before, cock blocking, rolling the eyes, berating him. That is not what a healthy queen does. It's not what a healthy woman does when she understands the wonder that men actually are. But it's taken time for me to unravel that in myself. And so if that feels like an untrue statement for you right now, that's okay. But it is a process and it is possible. So I'd love to tell you more about the program that I put together to really take you on this journey if you so choose. And I guess I just want to briefly share that the partner that I mentioned, he was with me when I was running this program last year, and there's a number of events that I was running before and after, and there's one workshop that actually ties in with this experience. And one of the women, he actually said to me afterwards, like, she has changed so much. I just don't recognize her. And she went on this journey of really being armored and, you know, protecting, and more what I would call kind of a really strong but aggressive woman who has to take care of everything herself, to opening into this, I'm okay, I'm soft, I can access my pleasure, I can receive your gifts, I can receive your penetration, I can receive your leadership, and I know that I'm going to be okay. And so when I think about what's possible over 3 months of starting to work with the mind and the body, the yin and the yang, in a sense, that's why I put this program together, was sculpting all the things, you know, as a facilitator and as a trainer and as a therapist that I've figured out and done for myself through many different avenues. I kind of put this program together to replicate, in a sense, the journey that I went on. And so it's called Devoted. It runs over 3 months, and it is deep. For those of you who've already worked with me, I don't do surface. Everything I offer is pretty deep, but this is deep. This is deep shadow stuff, particularly if we go straight into it, so that we can really start to liberate the stuff we don't need, the shit that needs to be gone, and then move into the opening and the softness and the safety. And as I said, it's a combination of mind and body approaches. And so over 12 weeks, what I essentially do is take you through 12 calls. And there's rituals in there as well, home practices that you can download, and I get you to do practice between every call. And there's journaling. So there's calls that are some are theory based, and there's some that are embodiment based. So what we actually do is we alternate week to week from theory to embodiment, so that you're getting some theory, and then we're embodying and working with it through the body, and then doing more theory and then working with it through the body. And so some of the things that are included in the course are up here for you. I offer a private Telegram group for, like, it's a container for us to all communicate, which is really beautiful for women to share with each other as they're going through the journey. And particularly for 3 months, it's a long time to be working on this. And so this nice connection starts to really form with the women who come through the program together. As I said, it's there's 12 calls, 7 of them are embodiment calls. There's a couple of rituals in there, and then there's 5 theory calls. So there's 5 modules that I do with the theory as well, to really help you to transform this stuff, and then give you the tools that if shadows and things come up later, one, you have access to all this content for life, so you can revisit it. I know some of the women from last year are thinking about coming back and redoing it again just to polish. But also you have the tools, like the embodiment tools, that you know how to work with it in yourself. And that is my real desire, is to give you the tools so that you are not reliant on anyone. You're not relying on me. You know, the analogy, you've given man a fish, teach him how to fish and you'll feed him for life. So it's that kind of analogy of really empowering you with your own toolkit. And embodiment for me is that toolkit. So the calls alternate from Thursday to Tuesday. So the first few calls are on a Thursday morning, like today, and then we do some evening calls on a Tuesday, and then some Thursday morning calls. And the reason for that is it really worked well last time, having morning and evening calls for some of the women who couldn't do all the calls. They could participate in some live and do the rest on replay. Also, we do the theory calls usually in the morning when we're fresh. And then we do the embodiment calls and the rituals more in the evening, when we don't want to be going into heady stuff. And so it kind of just gives a nice little bit of a different kind of a rhythm over the 3 months. So I'll give you the details on the website with all the list of all the call dates. I'm not going to go through them all now because there's quite a few. But is there anything else I need to tell you? I think not. I can't think of anything else. So if you're interested in working with me in this program, at this stage, I ran it once last year. I'm not expecting to run it more than once this year live. You can access at any time the course in a self-paced way, meaning you can just access the content and go through it without the group container that I'm offering now. But if you want to go through it with me holding the calls with you, and the group dynamics of the Telegram group and the in-person immersions that I'm going to talk about now, then this is the opportunity to start in April. So 4th of April, I think it's 4 weeks from now. So there's 3 different ways that you can participate. You can start with online only, which is essentially what we're doing now. It gives you access to all the things I've already mentioned, and that is the entry level. So for women who really want something more, and some of the women last time wanted to be able to get together, I've added in a 2-day immersion partway through. And so that's the 25th and the 26th of May. Again, all the dates are on the website. But essentially, we'll go through, and I think we go through about 5 or 6 weeks of calls, and then we do a 2-day immersion to really go into some more practices and rituals, and then we'll come out and do a bit more theory and some more practices for the last month. And then there's also the devotee, which is kind of the all-in option. I don't have many of those places. I think I only have 3 of those. But for women who want to do the online and the immersion and also have some private sessions with me throughout that 3 months, then I offer that at a discounted rate, meaning you get the private sessions at a lesser rate than I'm normally offering them, because I'd rather work with you and give you the support you need throughout this journey, and make sure that you get everything that you need. So the thing I haven't put on here is actually, can I do this? No, I won't. Is actually, there's another add-on, And that is an optional add-on. If you have a partner or if you want to come and work with another man, I have what I call a devotional ritual evening. And we actually did this as I designed it as a graduation ritual for the course. So at the end of the 3 months, you come with a partner or with a man that I pair you up with, and you get to go through some of the devotional practices to really, again, embody this higher level of queen, or we could term her as a priestess, through a ritual. So it's a beautiful graduation ritual that's completely optional. And that's the 8th of June, I believe, once we've kind of finished everything, or right near the end of the course, actually. But all the details I'll share with you via email. I'll actually pop it in the comments here as well for those of you who are on the live call if you want to have a look at it live time. And so this course doesn't actually officially launch until Monday. You're in the early release. So what that means is that I've got early release prices up here. So online, the price is $777, but I'm offering it to you at 15% off if you register by this Sunday. Same with the immersive, it's 1111, and if you want to register by Sunday, then you'll get 15% off, which is 944, and that includes the weekend immersion. And then the same for the devotee option. If you want some private sessions, then you save $300 there as well. So after Sunday, it will revert to, there will be a lower discount available for the first week, and then it will go into full price. So I also have payment plans. They're also on the website, but if you would like to pay it off over 3 months, that is an option for you if that helps you to do the course. So I guess I'd like to open up for any questions for those of you who are here. Does anyone have any questions that you would like to ask me? Because there's probably lots of things I've forgotten to say. It's usually the case. Can I tell you about the immersion? The immersion will essentially just be an opportunity to do some of the practices that we will have already done throughout the 2 months or the month and a half prior in person together to deepen them, and we will also be doing rituals. So I'm still scoping exactly what we will cover, and it will depend on the group and the needs of the women that are coming as well. But the intention is it will be heavily embodiment based, the 2-day immersion, so that because we will have done a lot of theory, you'll already be coming to a point where you're feeling quite liberated and quite like things are getting easier in relation to being more soft and feeling less guarded. And so it will be a really great way to ground that through 2 days of just deep embodied practice, coming together as women, connecting with each other, dancing, crying, doing some rituals. I hope that answers your question. It will be 2 full days at the beautiful venue here called Temple Retreat, which I have a lot of workshops at. So yeah, we start in a month. What type of are you? So I think you're asking about the ritual that I mentioned at the end, the devotional ritual evening, Renee. And so that is an optional extra. I've not included it in this pricing because I don't want anyone to feel that they have to do it. But it's essentially an evening routine. It's an evening, it's like 4 hours or 3.5, 4 hour evening in Brisbane City. And I invite you, if you have a partner, to come and to really just do some honoring practices with him. And if you don't, some of the women last time didn't have partners, and I brought some men from my other workshops who were able to really hold that energy, and I paired them up so that you can have the opportunity to practice being in this energy of devotional queen in a ritual space. So that evening is about very much embodiment and starting to really heal it with men, because we're going to be doing 3 months of this, but you're doing it all with yourself in solo practice and in this group. So to have this little graduation ritual where you come together and you get to experience it with a man sitting in front of you, it's like the pinnacle of like, oh wow, something has shifted in me. And it is, I mean, I'm getting goosebumps thinking about it. It's beautiful every time I run it, but it's completely optional. It's just a beautiful icing on the cake kind of experience. Yes, it's totally optional regardless of any of the other options. So regardless of whether you go online, immersive or devotee, that is an optional add-on. Sorry for making that confusing. So these are just all bundled together. So you just pick which one you want. And that one you don't have to decide about now. I won't release tickets for a while. I won't advertise it until I have all the women enrolled in this course. And then I'll let you all know so you can start planning for the date. And I'm just giving you a little, I guess, heads up. And probably I've made it confusing. So I apologize for having too many options. So think about that as completely optional and separate, but it is there at the end and you don't have to worry about it right now. Any other questions? The calls, I didn't mention the call times. They'll run for about an hour and a half each duration, sometimes close. I think the theory calls are maybe closer to 2 hours because we do some theory and then we do some embodiment and then we do some more theory, whereas the embodiment calls in the evening are slightly shorter because we're not doing any talking. We're just really practicing, you know, moving stuff through our bodies. Perfect. All right. Thank you so much for helping me clarify those things. There's always so much to remember. I am going to share the link in the comments if you are super excited and want to have a peek now before I get the email out. And it's going in the chat for you. But basically, it's on my website. It's just hidden because I haven't launched it officially. You're the first ladies to hear about it. It's brietaylormolyneux.com.au, which you can Google me, and then you just put devoted right at the end with a hash. But I've popped it in the comments, and it will be in the email for everybody who's on the replay. When it comes to enrolling, if you want to use the payment plan, so those options, those prices were a one-off payment. If you know you want to do it over 3 months, then there's a payment plan button on the website. I've just got a code for you if you're signing up at this point so that you get your discount. So you just have to use that on the payment plan, but otherwise the discounts will be factored in at checkout for everything else. And I hope that all makes sense. I'm very excited to work with some of you a little bit more and welcome whoever is feeling called to come in to this space. It is such a labor of love, honestly. I hope you can feel how much I love this program. It was, oh my God, I'm going to cry. It was so transformational with all the women that went through it. I haven't even shared all their testimonials, but maybe you can feel the potency of this work. And I really, truly believe this is sacred women's work. This is what, if we want to be in healthy relationship with men, what we sometimes term in the tantric space as sacred union, we have to do this work on ourselves so that we can receive them. The feminine is receptive in our body. We have to receive his penetration, his gifts, his leadership. And if we're blocking him, we can't really get into the fullness of the magic that we are. But we also block him from receiving our gifts. So the whole cycle gets interrupted. And I think so many relationships are ending. Marriage and divorce rates are just off the charts. It's ridiculous. And this is a big reason why, because we as women have not been taught how to come into safety in ourselves, and then 2, how to honor men in the way that they deserve. And I'm not talking about men who are abusive or unhealthy, that's a sidebar, but men who really want to love their women well. And the men who come to my events and the men who work with me privately, they want to love women well. And they're the kind of men that I know that you want to be in relationship with or are in relationship with. And so, yes, I'm very excited to guide you through this journey if it's calling to you. If you have questions, please feel free to email me or reach out in whatever way you need. And yeah, I'll stop there. I think I'm right on time. Thank you so much for those who joined me in the live call. It's really beautiful to have your questions. And for everybody else, yeah, I look forward to hearing from you. And I'll send another email reminding you before Sunday, because I know life can get busy. So I will send you a reminder about the end date. And yeah, don't be a stranger if you need anything.